Hi, welcome to the Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup group for September 2017. My name's Gayle Goddard. I'm the Clutter Fairy. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
How are you doing? I am going to talk today about Harvey and beyond, organizing after and before a natural disaster. And I wanted to do that because, of course, in Houston, we were the recipients of the big, ugly flood from Harvey. And it certainly was important to all of the people that are in my life and in our neighborhood here in Houston. So I thought that we could talk about that a little bit, and then next month we'll move on to the next topic again. Okay, thanks. Let me turn the page. So between Harvey and Irma and Maria, the whole country has had a whole bunch of effect by the hurricanes all over everywhere, and lots of people are in disaster mode at this point. And last month when I gave the Organizing for Safety meetup topic, it was 2 days before the hurricane hit, and I'm quite surprised that we ended up having this whole conversation about how to survive and get out of the house and be safe in these kind of situations, and then suddenly that situation had taken place. So here we were, and for those that were flooded, this event will really be in your face for many months to come. There's a whole lot of recovery required to get through to the end. And today I want to talk a little bit about experiencing that recovery process, and also take some time to talk about doing some preparation on the front end in case you're in this situation, so that you get the least stressful way out of the house, I guess is the way to say it, so that you can get away with the documents that you need and get away with the things that will help you recover as quickly as possible afterwards. Okay, so I do want to take a minute to say thank you to everybody who contacted me by text and by phone and through social media. We got so many people reaching out to us to find out if we were okay from all over the country. I really appreciate it. I finally recorded a video because I think it was making people nervous that I hadn't recorded a video. But Ed and Jaime and I were all fine. And most of my friends were fine. They had nervous moments of almost flooding, but not quite. Some people had a little bit of issues. I only had one friend that had a whole lot of trouble. So thank you so much for reaching out and trying to find out if our Houston family was fine. And I'm happy to report that we were. We were very lucky, and we feel very, everybody that didn't get water in their house has survivor's guilt, right? We all feel terrible because we got back to normal, a week later, and everybody else is going to be getting back to normal after months and months of work. So we made it, and thank you for inquiring about it. It was very kind of everybody to worry about us. So let's talk a little bit about experiencing the aftermath of this kind of disaster. My friend Ann was one of the lucky ones, and in response to her good fortune, she went to go help one of her friends who was without, the house was flooded and it was a disaster and she needed help, right? And water in the house, when water comes into the house, it creates this fire drill that is first how to get everybody to safety quickly, and then secondarily you come back and it's how do you get the house dry before the house is destroyed forever from mold and mildew. So it creates these two instant, I have to get safe and then I have to come back and make my house be safe. And it's a huge time pressure. Mold and mildew the clock starts ticking the minute that the water crosses the threshold of the house, and the minute the furniture gets wet or the clothes or the walls, that little time clock, the stopwatch goes on, and the mildew and mold starts growing. And depending on what's in the water that comes in the house, it's even faster and worse. So suddenly you have this big fire drill that requires you to clear out the house. And it takes a lot of manpower, and you're going to have to demo walls, and you're going to have to pull all the contents out of the house, and you're going to have to go in and separate wet things from dry things and make all these decisions, and yet you have to do it in a very compressed time frame. And you're going to have a whole bunch of people in your house all at the same time doing it. So anybody that had this experience, anybody that was safe, went to somebody's house that wasn't safe, and then there was 15 people in everybody's house with sledgehammers, cutting the sheetrock down, hauling wet things out of the house. It was like this big, troop movement inside everybody's house trying to get all the contents out. This is the worst possible environment for you to make any choices about what you want to keep or what you don't want to keep. And we were saying earlier that a lot of people got decluttered by water this past, Harvey. When Harvey went through, it just sort of decluttered a whole section of Houston because everybody had to make all their stuff go out in the trash without thinking about it at all. So here is Anne in the heat and the humidity, and she is trying to help her friend. And what she is doing in her part of the process was to box up things to be removed to storage that were dry, that didn't get wet. And she found herself being asked to box up silk flower arrangements and dusty crystal that hadn't been used for a really long time, and that clearly was not the most important thing in this person's life. But that was what her friend wanted her to do. And so it just meant that there was more manpower involved in clearing out the house because she wasn't able to make really good decisions about what was important and what wasn't important. I'd hate for you to be spending all your time boxing up a bunch of stuff that's not important anymore when everybody's hot and there's no air conditioning and there's no water and you have your friends over there volunteering their time. They need to be concentrating on the stuff that's most important for you, like knocking all the walls out of your house so the house can dry. If you don't get all the sheetrock down, then the house doesn't dry out and you could have mold forever. So that's what they needed to concentrate on, and you have to get all the stuff out of the way. And Anne spent her time boxing up stuff that nobody cared about in order to get to the sheetrock part. And so it's a statement, I think, on when it all comes down to it and life is really in chaos, these are the things that are so not important anymore, right? The things that we worry about and they're heirlooms and we're going to hang on to them forever and whatever become the least important things when you're trying to not die of toxic exposure, not have your house, become a mold center that can never be fixed, and you want to recover and get back to your life. And saving that crystal becomes the least important thing on the planet. One of the things that she did was the friend whose house was flooded had a craft room, and she had a whole bunch of fabric in there, and it was in bags on the floor. So of course the fabric was all completely soaked in what my friend Beth called Harvey piss, which was generally the smell, right? Like it was a horrible, horrible smell. So all of this fabric that was on the floor was ruined to everybody else. Everyone else in the house knew that this fabric was ruined. There was bags and bags of it. It weighed 1,000 pounds, waterlogged fabric, let me just say. When you pick up a bag of fabric, it's heavy enough, but when you pick up waterlogged fabric in a bag, it's so much heavier, let me just say that. And it was ruined, truly. But she kept wanting to try to save the fabric because she was going to take it and wash it. Well, this involves bagging up a bunch of waterlogged fabric, taking it to somebody else's washing machine because her washing machine had flooded and was not functioning, or probably very clean, right? So taking all that fabric away somewhere and trying to wash it, and nothing in this that's been in this water can go through one time and be done. It requires many steps of washing, disinfecting, yada yada. Everything that I washed for my friend, I washed twice, and we hung outside to try to let the sun kill things. And the more waterlogged it is, the more toxic chemicals in the fabric. So she wanted to save the fabric, and it was not a good use of anybody's time. It was too labor intensive in that moment to try to deal with all that fabric. And so all the fabric had to go out. But it was a really hard thing for the woman to accept and face. And I feel bad for her, like nobody wants their craft room to go to the curb. If they picked up all my beads and tossed them to the curb, I would cry. But it's part of the reality. That's why I'm mentioning this, because it's part of the reality that if you're in this kind of disaster, you're going to be making a million of decisions just like this in a real big hurry. and you're going to be going through all of your belongings, and it's not like when you move where you patiently stand there and pack things and decide what's going to go to Goodwill, and you're doing it in a very organized fashion. There is a troop of people in your house, and they're all running around pulling things out of closets and pulling things out of cabinets and pulling things out of furniture, because 100% of the contents have to go out, either to the curb because they're destroyed, or to storage, because ain't nobody living in the house for another 7 or 8 months while it gets rebuilt, right? So you have to make a million decisions, and there's 15 other people making those same decisions for you. So you really don't have any control, or you don't have much control, I'll say that, of the environment, and it's the worst possible time to make all those decisions. So I say that as a cautionary tale to say, imagine that you are standing in your house and looking at the stuff, and everything below your knees was wet. And what would you do? And in that moment, it would all go to the curb, right? Generally, unless it was super precious and there was a bunch of people willing to take it away and deal with it, it would all go to the curb. And so sometimes that kind of a filter can help you make decisions when you're on the fence. I don't know whether I should keep this. Imagine yourself, if I was standing here in my, cleaning up after disaster gear and no air conditioning and sweating like crazy and trying to decide whether it goes in the trash or not, I would immediately say this goes to trash, right? And so if you can come to that decision, then you can let it go, right? And while you still have air conditioning and you're not wearing disaster gear, right? Penny and I spent all of one Saturday after the storm at my friend Beth's house, and our assigned job that day, while there was all these other people, men walking around knocking out sheetrock and things being carried outside and whatever, our job was to deal with all the clothing, because all of the clothes were still hanging in all the closets, right? And the ones that were long, so my friend Beth favors longer things, of course, so all of the bottoms, because they had about 2 feet or 3 feet of water in the house, so all the bottoms of the clothes had absorbed water, and everything else was just kind of damp. And if it was above the water level, then it was just sitting in this toxic smell. So it was like they were in smoke, except it smelled nasty instead of smoky. You see what I'm saying? So all of the clothes smelled terrible. So our job was to bag up all the clothes out of all the closets and get them washed. But after I filled up my whole car with bags of clothes, and there were still more clothes to go put somewhere else, I was bagging them up until other people showed up that could take it away. And I realized at some point in the middle of the process that these are all either damp or soaking wet, and there's no way that I can clean them all. I can't run them through the washing machine fast enough. I only have one machine, right? So by the time I get through all these bags, the last bags will have already started to mold in the bags. So I ended up having to farm out the clothes to 4 different people, so that 4 different machines were running nonstop to get the clothes through before they were destroyed. And that was only because most of the clothes were not soaking wet. So for people that had clothes that were, like in dresser drawers, and the bottom of the dresser drawer was in water, yeah, I think a lot of those clothes just went to the curb, because the recovery process was way too labor intensive at that point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commercial washers.
Well, right, but that didn't have electricity and were not. It was like, at the same time you're trying to clean your house because you don't have electricity, nobody else does either, right? And everybody else is running to the washateria if it is on, and so the demand for a washing machine is pretty high at this point. And the toxic fabrics, you're putting them in your machine and hoping that your machine isn't permanently, made funkified, right? Exactly, as it says, made funkified. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it becomes this fire drill for resources and manpower and labor and focus. And I am sure that if you are the person, Beth walked around in the house and she just looked stunned the whole time. Like, it was such an overwhelming task to empty the house in a hurry, sort destroyed from not destroyed, and having people knocking out walls through the entire house so that you could basically see all the way across the house once all the sheetrock was gone. I mean, it was overwhelming to me, and it wasn't my house. I can't imagine as a homeowner that you're standing there watching this process, that you have any brain power to make any decision. So,
on the sheetrock, I read a commentary. Those are panels, right? So you just want to destroy the lowest panel only.
right?
And then they can just fix that.
But do the panels go this way or this way? I don't know.
I think they go,
Well, yeah.
so
Yeah, so I mean, but it's like, you know, you have to go in and knock all that down all the way around and carry that all, and, you know, haul that all out to the curb. And they were running wheelbarrows of leftover sheetrock all out the front door, and it was a huge pile of mess. So not a good time to be trying to sort your belongings and make good decisions. And so I'm just saying, it's one of those spaces where you have no brain power, you have no focus, you're completely overwhelmed, and you're having to do it all in the shortest possible time to save your house. And so if you can use that as a filter in advance of the storm, you will save everybody that comes to help you later a lot of work, is what I'm saying. Okay. So let's use these stories to help you plan for a disaster in the future, right?
You know those, what do they call those, dry fits? Those tubs of, you know, the dehumidifiers, right?
Right?
They really do work.
Oh yeah, so you mean the plug-in thing that no.
No, you can buy these chemicals, and they come in these little tubs, and they...
Oh, I know what you're talking about, like damp rib.
Desiccant.
Yeah, little desiccant things. Yes,
they really
okay.
do work.
That's true,
So you
they
can
do.
actually slow down the mold growth if you just stick enough of them in to all the windows.
Wow, okay.
Sure.
That would make me nervous.
No, I have a storage unit, right?
Right.
And I don't, it's not air conditioned, so humidity is always a problem. And I was really surprised.
So you use the desiccants in your storage unit that doesn't have any air conditioning?
Yeah. It's
That's
kind of
helpful.
sealed, so you can just seal the house up and throw enough those desiccants in there. It won't stop it, but it will reduce the...
Slow it down? Well, that would be helpful. Well, and you know, depending on what everything is, yeah. Well, I won't get into the construction part of it because that's clearly not my area of expertise, but you're right. A desiccant would help absorb some air. And there's also dehumidifiers that pull water out of the air as well, which I'm sure would be helpful later on. Okay, so let's talk about preparing for the storm. If your family knows it's coming down the pike, what would you do? So make sure you're alive first. That's the most important thing. So you want to plan for your family, you and your family and your pets' safe escape route. And that's a whole different ball of wax about, are you going to drive away early? Are you going to climb up on your roof? Yada, yada, yada. So you want to be able to put the pets in something. You want to have a safe escape plan. And I would leave that up to your area and your house and what's going on. The plans are going to change, whether it's a hurricane or a tornado or whatever. Those are all going to be different. But that's the first plan to get, no matter what is your safe escape plan, okay? And then what is the broadcast telephone number for, oh my God, I need help, right? Because it's not going to be just 911. That was something that we found in Harvey. There were so many people that needed help simultaneously that 911 could not handle it. And then part of the 911 system went down from water and loss of electricity. And so there cropped up all these other people who were just sort of running makeshift rescue operations and putting out their telephone number asking for help. So you want to be watching for the right telephone number to call besides 911 to get help if you need it. The second thing is that you want to collect all of your critical documents and make sure that those can go with you and stay dry. So I'm talking about things like Social Security card, birth certificates, death certificates, your wills, your health insurance card. There's not all of your photographs, but a few precious, irreplaceable photographs, maybe. I would go for the few special ones, like you want to make sure you have your wedding photo, or maybe you want to have your, 14th removed great-grandparents of a picture or whatever. Those photographs that feel so important to you. I would Ziploc those, first of all, in a couple of Ziplocs. And then I would put it in a kind of a plastic Tupperware container that can snap closed, and I would duct tape it closed. And put that in a bag, that zips closed or snaps closed, because you're going to have to, as we saw on the television, all these people had to wade through water and get into boats to be driven to safety and get out of boats, and then who knew where they were going to be, right? So in order for those papers to stay dry, they can't just be on you. They have to be sealed in something that will not take on water. And then it has to be in a bag that will close so that when you hit the water, the contents of your bag isn't just going to float out behind you and go down the river, right? So it's important to make it waterproof and make it something that you can wear on your body and not have it get in the way of you being safe and escaping in whatever floating mode of transportation you end up taking. Clearly, if we're talking about here comes the hurricane, here comes the tornado. A lot of people that live in tornado country have shelters that they go into, right? So I would think it'd just be better to store those documents in the tornado shelter all the time. Like just move them down there in their own box and leave them there. So that no matter what, they're in the shelter with you. You don't have to go find them in the tornado, they're just already there. So that if you need it, you can go down to the tornado shelter and get it for something in your regular life, but if it just lives down there, that would be awesome. Ultimately, the problem that, I have an organizer friend who is in disaster recovery, and I met her a few days after the storm went through at an event, and she said that her biggest problem as trying to provide help for people as a disaster recovery expert is getting them registered for help. You know, you submit all these applications, but you have to have paperwork to prove your eligibility for things. And so the people that got out without their documents, who lost their driver's license or lost their birth certificate or social security cards or whatever, or they didn't have them, then they had to wait. They had to apply for replacements and wait for those replacements to come before they could then apply for the recovery help. And so she said that was the biggest hurdle that they were trying to get over as helpers, was helping people replace their documents so that then they could go get help. So you need them, and you need them for all the people that are all the federal programs that are going to help you, all of the nonprofits maybe that are going to help you. You're going to have to provide documents. You better have them with you. It'll save you 60 days of waiting to get started, is my point. And you know, there's not that many pieces of paper that are so important that you want to keep up with, right? The one thing that I would add in here too is if you have your like login and password stuff in a little booklet of any kind, I would put that in the Ziploc too. Because when you arrive somewhere, eventually you're going to be able to get on somebody's computer somewhere, but you need to have the logins and passwords when you get there, right? So you'll be able to check on things and do your banking or whatever on anybody's computer as long as you still have all the logins. So make sure that's in your Ziploc bag too. One of my friends was telling me the other day that he was saying things to his dog. So he has a younger daughter, probably teenage, I guess, and he was saying things like, everything's going to be fine, it's going to be okay, but I want you to pack your backpack with your clothes to go in case we have to leave. Everything's going to be fine, it's all going to be fine, but I want you to sleep in the clothes so that you're ready to leave when I tell you it's time to leave. And so he was trying to stay calm for his daughter and also give these disaster instructions, and I thought his instructions were very good. One, he told his wife and daughter to sleep in their clothes so that they were ready to go. Two, he told them to take their rain gear and the galoshes and the raincoat and stick them next to the bed so they could get out of the bed, put on the galoshes, put on the raincoat, and they were ready to leave the house. He told them to pack a backpack, and in the backpack a couple of changes of clothes and also some toiletries. Imagine you're going to be somewhere trying to get shelter and you're going to want to brush your teeth and maybe, you know, wash your face and put on some deodorant because you're probably going to smell terrible at that point, right? You're going to want to do a few little things that make you feel better, right? And so having those in a backpack that you can put on and not have to be dragging behind you, something that you can wear and still get in and out of boats and things. I would put it inside something that is waterproof, so maybe you got to get some of those big 2-gallon Ziploc bags or something like that to put inside the backpack so the clothes can stay dry. You want shoes that are closed, so the tennis shoes, but not the sandals, right? You need to be able to go through water and not have the shoe come off. And you want your feet protected from whatever you're walking through because you don't know what's in there. So you want some closed-toed shoes. And maybe, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a t-shirt to sleep in or something, if you get a chance to, you know, arrive at your friend's house and have pajamas. So a little bit of things to wear. And he was packing the, you know, the kit of vital documents while they were packing the backpacks to go. And so they were ready. If they didn't end up having to do it, but it was a close thing for them, and they were ready to go with their backpack with clothes and stuff and their rain gear, and they were in their clothes already ready to leave the house. And that was awesome. He was prepared. If somebody had to canoe up to his house and canoe him out, they were ready to go, and they would have been prepared with everything they needed. So I think doing those bags are really important for escaping. Okay? Take anything that this is after you've made a plan for escape, after you've packed things to go with you, after you've got your vital documents, make sure all that's happening first. Then you start worrying about the stuff, right? So make sure that you get everything off the floor that you want to save. So if you imagine that all the countertops and tables are pretty high, right? And if you get, you know, 7 feet of water in your house, that all bets are off. It won't matter what you do. But if you get 2 or 3 feet, the countertops and the tables will probably be higher than that, and you can save some things up there. So you can also put furniture on top of other furniture. Somebody told me that they took 2 chairs. They just bought a couch like a month before the storm. So they took 2 like armchairs, and they lifted the couch up and sat it on top of the chairs, which saved the couch, even though they lost the chairs. But the couch was the brand new thing that you just spent all the money on, right? So as you go through the house, you want to lift everything up. My friend Beth had cabinets full of all of her family photographs, and they were all underwater because they were in the bottom cabinets, which I have stored in people's houses a lot of times. I have stored photographs in those cabinets that are out of the way, and, you know, it's a perfect place to park them until your house has 3 feet of water. Then it's not. So you want to go through the house looking for everything that is low and try to pick them up. If you have a second floor, then you can carry things up to the second floor. That's easy enough. But if you don't, then you're looking at tables and countertops to put things on and get them out of the way. And you want to go plucking the important things first, right? If you're low on time, you're not going to be able to get everything off your floor, and you're going to want to sleep a little bit before you have to escape the house probably. So, you know, concentrate on things that are most important to you. And you'll find yourself going, yeah, I don't care about that, and you'll keep going. And suddenly there will be this great filter for all the things in your house that you haven't been able to let go of before now, right? If you don't have to leave the house, so typically we wait through the hurricane, and the hurricane goes by and we don't have 50 inches of rain. So that's not normal. It's not usually a hurricane/flood event. It's usually just a hurricane event. And most of the time we can stay in the house. But then you lose electricity, maybe you lose water pressure, you know, you can't get out, the grocery stores are closed, whatever. So you want to make sure that you have adequate water for everybody, and you want to have some non-perishable foods that'll survive, keep your family fed for several days in case you can't get out. And the most important one is, if you're one of those people that takes medicine regularly, you want to make sure that you have that medicine that will survive you. You can get through for a week. While they get everything back to normal and get everything reconnected, so that you don't run out of something that you absolutely have to take every day, right? We don't all have that problem, but if you do, you want to consider that and make sure that those things are in your house. Okay? All right, turn the thing. Oh, one thing that I also do is, this is an old school one, fill up a bathtub or buckets with water. So if the water pressure drops and you can't flush the toilet, you can still pour water in the toilet and flush the toilet, which is a lovely thing to do when you're trapped in the house for a week, right? You want to stock flashlights and a weather radio and batteries for all those things. And then you want a car charger. During Hurricane Ike, which was many years ago, I went without electricity for 17 days, which was really miserable. But what saved me and kept me in contact with everybody was the fact that I could get in my car and drive around with my car charger and charge my cell phone up. So I was able to keep texting people and, you know, my family out of town and whatever. I could still function because I could use the car charger to charge the car. Of course, this won't work if your car's flooded, but if it's not flooded, then it's a way for you to keep the cell phone running even though the electricity of the house is out.
Oh yeah, if you're caught in if you got a flood coming in, right, one of the things you can do to try to possibly reduce something is take the front end of your car and drive it on something high.
Oh.
Because it's, the water comes in, they're gonna come in through your exhaust, right?
Right.
You'll damage some of the exhaust and you might lose that, but you're not gonna
Lose the
an
engine.
extra 2 or 3 inches on the edge. So, curbs and things like that, just drive it all right up there and just try to keep it up there, and you got an
Right.
extra 2 or 3 inches maybe to help you.
And it takes a while to cover 2 inches, right? So for this past storm, all bets were off. 50 inches didn't help anybody. But generally, those 2 or 3 inches, so he's suggesting that you make sure that the engine part of the car is pointed up higher than the back of the car. You can go up on the curb, go up in the yard, point the engine up. Maybe even if the exhaust gets water, the engine won't get water, and you can still keep your car,
And you can
which would be awesome, right?
another tricky thing you can do, right? Because we have water, right? If you got a low spot, and I had a low spot, you take a hose or garden hose, fill it up with water, right? Get a nozzle, just make sure it's full up, and then just take the low spot and try to take that hose all the way down to the street and let it go.
Oh, and drain it out.
Actually drain it out, yeah. So I get my back of the patio pretty much cleared up.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, my neighbors across the street had water coming in through the backyard too because it wasn't draining fast enough. Yeah, so he's making a suggestion that you get a hose from a low-lying area out to the street so that the water can drain out that way, and hopefully, not back up into your house from the backyard or some other area that way.
So he's talking about not being hooked up to anything.
Right,
Just
Mhm.
the suction.
Just the suction, right?
You just gotta make sure the hose is completely filled before the.
Right.
You take a nozzle to the hose and you fill up the hose.
Fill up the hose completely before you do it, and that creates the. There you go.
And just make sure the other end is dropped lower than wherever you're trying to set.
Right, and there it is. Awesome, says the engineer guy, right?
I learned on the internet while this was going on.
Well, and there was a whole bunch of the highway areas that they had to do the same kind of things to. They had to pump the water out because it was so low lying, there was nowhere for it to drain. Okay, so you also want to fill your gas tank up. You want to make sure that your car is full of gas so that either you can escape or you can run your car to charge your cell phone after the disaster, right? So after the emergency is passed, then you want to make sure that you're protecting your own health. So this is where we talk about you're going to come in and start cleaning up, and you want to be covered. You want to have gloves on. You want to have a mask on so you're not breathing the nasty chemicals. You want to have your feet covered and not be working in flip-flops. The idea will be that it'd be the great time to have on a tank top and shorts and flip-flops because it's so hot, except that you're in a horribly toxic environment with God only knows what and all the stuff that you're flinging. And people are going to get hurt and scratched and bruised and whatever in the process, and you don't want to be introducing toxic bacteria into your body if you can help it. So, and you don't want to be aggravating for people that have asthma and allergies and stuff. It's the worst possible mold environment. God only knows what's in the air while you're pulling sheetrock dust out. You don't want to just be breathing all that stuff. So make sure that you take care of yourself, protect yourself with as much gear as you can get. You'll be happier later that you didn't make your allergies completely explode or your asthma go off the charts, because then you're going to be one of a million people trying to get hospital services after a disaster, right? And you don't want to be that person either. So if this happens to you, if this process happens to you, this is like being overwhelmed on steroids. It's so much to do in such a compressed amount of time with so many people that you don't have any control over, and all you can do is make really short, fast decisions and move on. So anything you can do to get stuff out of your house ahead of time will make future you happy. So that's what I'm saying. So who has questions that they want to ask me about it right now? Did you have a question about being prepared that you wanted to ask me about? Don't mean to put you on the spot. It's okay. What about you? Okay. This process has been a great education for all of us, and like I said, Harvey has decluttered a whole lot of the city of Houston. But we just had a water declutter event, and everybody's stuff went floating down what in essence was streets that turned into rivers. And you know, if you were lucky enough like me to not have that kind of effect, then I'm sure that you're super grateful, and I'm sure that you've also been helping your friends dig out their home. And so I want to suggest to you that you take that experience of cleaning somebody else's house out and translate it to your own house. And imagine if you were in this position and all these people were running around your house and everything was wet from the knees down. What would you do? What would you say? And what would you look at and go, I don't care, and throw it away? Use that filter, and you will be better prepared in your house in case something real life happens. And you will also give yourself a mechanism by which to sort your belongings and let some things go. Okay?
Okay, I got one suggestion.
Okay, please.
What really caught me off guard, because I had a plan ready, you know, I didn't want to go buy a generator until I really needed one.
Right.
And I didn't want to go buy rubber boots until I really needed one. So I was already 4 days, you heard it coming, so I was 4 days in ahead.
Right.
And I got busy on something, so it's 3 days. So I finally go, okay, I'm ready now. All the cheap generators are gone on Amazon. I rushed down to Sam's. The $300 generator was gone. You had to go buy this $1,000 generator that weighed a ton I couldn't even get in my car. So the trick to all this is don't wait to buy those emergency supplies late. Because
well, right. And so what he's saying is he waited a little too late to go and get some of the supplies, and by then all the cheap stuff was gone and there was only expensive stuff left.
oh,
And
yeah.
he's right. You're right. It's
People waiting for those water bottles. Just
right. Trying to get water bottles. You don't want to wait. When you get to the beginning of the hurricane season, go get your supplies then. You don't want to wait until the weatherman's going, okay, we got a hurricane coming, because then everybody is going to go get their supplies at the same time, and you are going to be left without. So better to do it while it's easy to think about and there's no crisis, because then you can think about it with all of your faculties and you can put your whole attention to it, and you can go to Walmart and get some extra water and put it in a closet somewhere. And if, 3 months later the hurricane has not come, you can take it out and water your plants with it and you're done, right? He's right about that. Go get the generator when it's not hurricane season. And right now is probably not the right time, because there's places that, Puerto Rico and Florida and Houston everybody wants generators because there's so much trouble everywhere. So now's not a good time, I guess is what I'm saying. Later will be better. Okay, is that everything? Then we're going to stop, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. I'll see you next month. Bye.